Hi, this is Katie, the president of Certum Solutions in North Carolina. And today we're going to jump into a very robust software, QuickBooks Enterprise Solutions. For the purposes of the demo, we're going to actually cover manufacturing and wholesale, and you will see more demos come up over the coming weeks where I go through the other verticals as well. If you're looking for a generalized demo of QuickBooks Enterprise, any one of these is a good fit, but if you do have heavy inventory, then paying close attention to manufacturing and wholesale is a great idea. We're going to start off with a general overview, going through preferences and talking about some of the add-ons you can think about, such as QuickBooks Payments or QuickBooks Payroll and the different levels that they have. After we do that, we're going to go through any specific industry areas at a very high level just to show you where they are. We will then dive into preferences, then we'll jump over into customers, cover vendors, we'll go into inventory and employees, and then we'll go into reporting to tie it up. If you do have any questions, go ahead and put in a comment or send me an email, and you also have the option to schedule a complimentary one-on-one with me. And with my one-on-ones, it's a 30-minute session. We'll go through an overview of what your needs are, and I'll follow up with a call summary and next steps. All that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And I do have several notes here because I want to make sure that I stay on track. So if you see me looking off camera a little bit, then that's what I'm doing. Okay, now let's get started. So here's our general overview for QuickBooks Enterprise. The thing that I like about it, I've also talked about in QuickBooks Online Advanced. You have a very visual map that shows you subtle workflows so that if you're new to the program, it kind of guides you along your path. Okay, you also have a left-hand navigational ribbon, and you can add custom shortcuts depending on what your day-to-day needs are. Along the top, for people like me who use Excel and they kind of like things in a menu format, you have your menu format that is easy to navigate as well. Most, if not all, functions you can access in multiple ways. There's also keyboard shortcuts that you can make use of in this program. If you find this video helpful, or if you find my channel helpful, a like to the video or subscribe to the channel or a comment or any of the three if you have some time, that's always greatly appreciated, and it helps encourage me to continue doing this work. With that being said, let's go over and cut into this program, shall we? So with our homepage navigation, we do have an Insights tab. This is very empty because for the reasons I stated before, for the purposes of the demo, I wanted to make sure I used a blank slate. And I didn't want any transactions in there because some of the things that we will go over, and this is going to be a long one, will require that I have a brand new file so that you can see some of the prompts that you receive. Okay, so here's our general overview. You notice there's two tabs. There's your home page and your Insights tab. If you like the dashboard experience, this is always a winner. Okay, otherwise, if you just want your navigational piece, you just click over into the home page. Now, if you go under File, you see your menu here. There's some features you will see during the course of this demo that are accountant version specific. I will try to point those out as much as possible, but when in doubt, just let me know that you're interested. We'll get you a comparison sheet so you know exactly what's not available and what is available. So underneath the File menu, you have several features here where you can open, brand new companies, you can restore companies, you can back companies up, you can create local backups, you can turn on online backups, create your copy, close the company, switch to multi-user mode. I'm currently in single user mode. Single user mode is required for most administrative functions and things that may affect the whole file. So what they'll do is when you switch to single user mode, no one else will be able to enter that file until you have switched back to multi-user, right? Utilities here, so you can import Excel, IIF, Web Connect files, timer activities, and general journal entries. You can export to IIF. You can synchronize your contacts, set up ODBC if you're into business intelligence and heavy reporting, you have custom reporting, you can convert from Quicken and Peachtree. I've actually not had to use those features in quite a while, but they still do exist. Move QuickBooks to another computer, copy the file for online. If you're looking at QuickBooks Online Advanced, then that's a helpful feature. And repair file and network problems. Now, it does list that, but new for this year, they have a troubleshooting toolbox, and I'll show you where that is in a little bit as well. You can share screen with an agent, host multi-user access. So if you're set up on a local area network with multiple computers, you will have a host computer. That host computer not only holds onto your file, but it's also in charge of having the database manager so that it controls the traffic to and from that file. Okay? Verify data and rebuild data. It's always smart to do that every once in a while as a maintenance and a preventative issue. Files do get fragmented, and when they get a little bit out of control, it becomes a problem. Okay? You can also condense data, and there's several different ways of condensing data, and I'm not going to go through all of that today, but you can cut off certain time periods. You can remove the audit trail, which I think cuts it down by like a third. That was added a few years ago. There's several ways to condense your file so it doesn't get out of control if you are a larger company. With QuickBooks Enterprise, you are working with a desktop software. You may have heard about it being in the cloud. What that typically means is that they are hosting it on right networks, like a hosting provider, sort of like a VPN environment. You can also host it on a number of other platforms. Okay, so with that all being said, you can also send your file to your accountant. With it being a desktop version, you can send it to them, and you can create a portable company file as well, which just does things like cuts off some like log files and things that you're really probably not going to use very often. It just makes it smaller. And so you have various features there. You do have the print forms if you want to access it through this menu, and I'm just highlighting those quickly so that you can see what those are. You can set up your printer, send forms, and this is also where you'll access your shipping manager. So if you are shipping products to customers, shipping manager is very helpful. You can pair it with shipping printers, I'm sorry, and you can pair it with your FedEx, UPS, or USPS login. Okay, so that's very helpful in the manufacturing industry. Is it perfect for everybody? Maybe not. Sometimes in manufacturing and distribution, you may have a third-party shipping software, and in cases like that, we can talk about how to host those or integrate those if they're not already paired with QuickBooks. So one thing that I'd like people to take away is that if you use QuickBooks and you have very customized flows, we can always talk about how we can accomplish those flows either by using an out-of-the-box integration like the ones in the Intuit Marketplace, or by creating one custom ourselves. Okay, so great. We're ready. I've taken a quick break, and we're ready to dive into the next section. So we've talked about the navigation a little bit. We've gone through the file. Under Edit is where we will access preferences in a moment. You also have View. You can do one window or multiple windows. With one window, obviously, your home screen here will just be one window. You won't be able to have multiple windows open at one time. With multiple windows, you can have multiple windows open at one time, which is great, but sometimes they clutter your screen. If that ever happens, you can always go over to Windows and hit Close All. Okay, so we have the view. You can customize your icon bar. So actually up here, you can also do shortcuts along the top bar, and you can list where you want your icon bars to be. You can also do multi-monitor mode, which actually came out, I want to say two versions ago maybe. The thing to remember with multi-monitor mode, as of the date of this recording, you can only use the same size monitors. So if, like me, maybe you use your laptop screen as one monitor and then you have a much larger monitor next to that, that will not be compatible with multi-monitor mode. If you have two monitors of the exact same size and resolution, then that will work perfectly for multi-monitor mode. Okay, next we have our lists, And you also have add, edit, multiple list entries, which is very helpful, especially if you have a lot of data in Excel and you don't want to have to get a third-party import tool. You can actually add and edit multiple list entries, right? Now, just a side note, you'll notice that's list entries. That is not transactions. I know that you can import bank transactions into QuickBooks, but other than that, and I believe maybe using like third-party import tools, that's what you're going to have. And there may be some other ways, but those are the ones that are most commonly known to me. And then you have groups, which is new, and we'll go through that in a little bit. So there's your lists, you have your favorites, which are kind of like your bookmarks in Google Chrome. The manufacturing and wholesale, if I was in a different industry edition, it would show the different industry. So here are some quick shortcuts that are common to the manufacturing and wholesale world. Okay, your quotes, your sales orders, sales order fulfillment worksheet, creating invoices, receiving payments, making deposits, and so forth. Okay, you can see all this here. Okay, reporting is always something that changes depending on the industry edition, as well as a few different features. Okay, now next we'll go to company, and you have several items here that we can go into. Lead center, I don't see people use a ton, but I have seen companies that use it. If you're not quite ready for a customer relationship manager or CRM, using the lead center is a nice way to kind of bridge that gap until you're ready. Users is where you'll set up your user permissions. There are 14 predefined roles that you can set up for users. You have customer credit card protection. You can change your password, your closing date, and as I've mentioned several times in other videos, always set your closing date, right? Bulk enter business details. You have your planning and budgeting. Now here, key, you actually can set up budgets and forecasts. I'm a fan of the KISS method, so I typically use my budget sort of as a forecast. And I also am a fan of rolling budgets, so the ones that you revisit periodically versus doing one and done and then, you know, having a completely big variance. Now, depending on how your company is set up, you may have yearly budgets. I have rolling budgets. I set them up every month. I revisit them every month. It helps me stay in tune with what my plans are for my business. Okay, cash flow projector and your business planning tool. To-do list is mainly a list of your activities that you need to get done. It's very similar to reminders. Your alerts manager too. Your chart of accounts. And something I will say is I will put the shortcuts, but you can also access a lot of the shortcuts by seeing what is, well, they'll be listed by the menu here, just like chart of accounts, my favorite shortcut. I'm always using it, and it's saying you'll hit Control+A. Your general journal entries, your accounting tools here. Now, I believe this is included, but it is possible this is accountant only. So I will make sure to note that after the video. Manage currency. If you use multi-currency, you can use multi-currency in QuickBooks Enterprise. Something to keep in mind, though, if your home currency is not the US dollar, it does change the way the program works in some ways. You cannot use bank rules and bank feeds if your home currency is not the US dollar. There's other differences as well, but that's the biggest one. Manage fixed assets. Now that's something I'm going through right now with customers that have previously used QuickBooks Enterprise and they're looking at maybe moving to QuickBooks Online Advanced. The fixed assets piece is one thing that we're having to look at because QuickBooks Online Advanced does not really track fixed assets. You can say it's a fixed asset, you can say you're tracking depreciation, but they kind of expect you to be getting the depreciation numbers from somewhere else, whereas with QuickBooks Enterprise, there's actually a whole separate module that will come up if you ask it to manage fixed assets. You can enter your vehicle mileage and you can prepare letters, which I don't know if anybody still uses that. I know I don't, but it's there if you do. Customers, which I'm not going to go over right now because we'll go over it shortly. Vendors for the same reason. Your employees. Customers, vendors, employees, and inventory all have what's called centers. So you'll be able to go to that center as the first menu. You can also kind of go over in a list format, take a look at the lists and stuff like that. Okay, so under banking, we have writing checks, credit card charges, the register, and so forth. We'll go over a lot of this during the course of this. Oh, and the new business loans. So QuickBooks has been getting into banking. They have QuickBooks Cash now, which just came out. So you know, if you see some of these features and it looks like some sort of banking activity, that's probably what it's related to. Cash is very new. QuickBooks Capital has been around for a long time, and I think it's different. Okay, reports. Report Center, we'll go through this in brief. Obviously, there's a lot of reports. I want to say it's over 160 different types of reports. And you do have industry-specific reports, which are listed here under manufacturing and wholesale. And then down here, you've contributed reports. You also have custom reports, which that's really a helpful tool. I use that a lot. So there's a couple ways that you can do customized reports. They have advanced reporting, which I might have mentioned I'm not a massive fan of just because of the learning curve that's involved with it. But if you can't find a specific report in the click and drag above, a lot of times you can create it here with the custom reports button here using summary or transaction detail, and those two types are very self-explanatory. Summary rolls stuff up. Transaction detail is a list. Okay. Transaction history and transaction journal. Okay. So under Windows we talked about that. Then we have help, and then I'm going to ignore special offers because we all know that sales stuff. Okay. So under help though, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is the new toolbox right here. QuickBooks Tool Hub, fix setup and file issues. If you are running into QuickBooks file problems, you now have a new tool called QuickBooks Tool Hub. It used to be in the old days that if you had file problems, you were going around to the help documents, knowledge base documents, trying to find the password reset tool and trying to find all kinds of other tools. You can fix a lot of issues now with the Tool Hub. Okay. Now let's move on. So we've talked about some of the specific industry areas. We've talked about optional hosting. We haven't actually talked about QuickBooks payments, but you'll know what I'll do. We'll go through that here as we move through our preferences. And we've talked about the navigation. Okay, so preferences. Under preferences, you have several tabs here, guys. Okay, I'm not going to go through every single button because I kind of feel like I'm doing that already, but I want to make sure that this tutorial is very in-depth for those that are watching. Under company preferences, you have use account numbers, require accounts, so on and so forth. If you have account numbers, you can do lowest sub account. I'm going to leave that turned off. I actually keep mine turned on for reasons I've talked about in another video. Class tracking is always great. Prompt to assign classes to what level. You don't have that option in QuickBooks Online. So if you'd rather have classes at the accounts level, the items level, or the names level, you can change that global here. You do have classes in online. Automatically assign general journal entry number. I like that being on. Warn when posting a transaction or retained earnings. That's kind of like similar to opening balance equity. Opening balance equity is one of those accounts that you should always have a zero balance in, okay? Retained earnings isn't quite that extreme. It's exactly what it says. It's earnings that have not been distributed. I would leave those transactions to your CPA or accountant, okay? Actually, unless you are an accountant or unless you are very comfortable in the equity part of your balance sheet, leave it alone. Let them do it at the end of the year or the period, depending on how often you work with them. Hide opening balance fields in names and items. And that is an awesome feature because I also talked about that in another video. If you enter an opening balance amount as you set up a new account or a new name, it puts that balance in opening balance equity. It didn't just go poof. It didn't just appear because accounting is debits and credits, right? One side equates another side. So when you have an opening balance and you don't tell the system where it's going, it goes, well, it has to go somewhere. So it puts it in its virtual trash can, which drives me crazy because as an accountant, you're accounting for expenses and transactions. This is what I would call plugging a number. You don't know what's behind the number. You just know it is a number, okay? sending it there to opening balance equity is a bad idea, because then you're going to leave it there and you're going to go to close your books. And if you have an accountant that actually notices it's there, they will have to go back and figure out where it came from. Or you may have an accountant who does not realize it's there, or a CPA or anybody, because people make mistakes, okay? And when you're dealing with that many accounts at the end of the year, it's easy to make a mistake. If they don't notice it, it carries over to the next year. Because it's on balance sheet. It doesn't go poof. Nothing in accounting goes poof. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Hide opening balance fields and names and items. Do not enter opening balances. Take the time to figure out where that came from and enter either a journal entry or a form to generate where that came from. Okay? Don't put it on your balance sheet where it's going to perpetually hide until somebody goes, well, poop, that stinks. Okay, your warning, your dates are closed. We just talked about closing dates. I won't set that up now, but you can set it up and you can say password. And as I mentioned on other videos, I always recommend having a password. I always recommend one person, the main power user, having that password, okay, so that you don't have problems down the road. Do I want to change it? No, not yet. Okay, bills. Okay, we've got automatic bills. This automatically using credits piece and discounts is something I get asked about a lot, where people say, we have accounts with such and such. I don't want my credits to automatically apply. What you may not know is that was something that was set up in the preferences. You can turn that off, okay? And just to specify, my preferences is user level, so how I like stuff to look. Company preferences are global, that goes across the whole data file. Okay, checking, calendar, okay, checking. And then here's your checking information. Open create paychecks, open payroll liabilities with this. So if you have a different payroll account, you'll want to make sure that you set the default. Okay, I've got, oh, and then bank feeds, and let me mark this off my list because I wanted to make sure I highlighted the items that are brand new. So far we talked about the tool hub, that's brand new, so I'm marking that off my list. Bank feeds, this enhanced bank feeds is new for version 21. You have advanced mode, express mode, and classic mode. What's the difference? Okay, I'm going to open this so you can read it. And so I make sure I get my explanation correct because it's new to me too. So basically with advanced mode, to my understanding, it uses AI or artificial intelligence, really machine learning, to kind of decide where to apply things. So it kind of takes more assumptions into play. So to me, I'm hesitantly excited about that, but on the other hand, I also know what it's like when you just blanket accept stuff in the bank feeds and it goes to the wrong place. So I would definitely use this feature with caution until you know exactly how it's going to behave. I would speak to that more, except this feature's been out for like a month and I've not had to use it a ton either. Okay, so this, under advanced, it uses a transactions list window to add or match transactions. You can quickly update transactions for future matches or create rules to automatically recognize them. We already use rules in online, and we already use rules in desktop, so I'm kind of interested to see how the rules are different this year. Okay, renaming modes. Okay, or maybe it's just saying that rules are brought over into advanced mode this year. Okay, that's probably what it is. So it has more rules in advanced mode. Uses transactions list window to add or match transactions in express mode. Renaming rules are created automatically. Yikes. Okay. Just be cautious with this until you know exactly how it's going to behave. This uses the account register to add or match transactions. Aliases match names exactly, and you control when they're created. So that's probably the most conservative. Okay, so moving on from there, bank feeds, and the improved bank feeds have been talked about, so I'm going to tick off of there. Do I want to save changes? No. I will save changes when we get to inventory because we'll have to set up advanced inventory and advanced pricing during this video. So I'll make sure to identify when I'm doing that. Okay, company preferences. Do we want to use sales receipts? So sales receipts is when you're receiving the money at the time of sale, kind of like a cash register, where you're not putting stuff to your accounts receivable account. Statements and statement charges are things, it's like a delayed charge where it's going to be billed out on a statement later. I don't know a ton of people that use those, but I'm sure that there are clients that do. And then invoices are required, so it's grayed out. Invoices are where you are doing transactions either on a schedule or cadence, or at the time of sale, but they're not paying you right away, so you're sending them a bill or sending them an invoice, right? Okay, vendors, enter bills and pay bills. We've got that turned on too. Okay. And then if you have a simpler business model and there's things you really think are not needed for your company, you can turn these off down here. Okay, so sales tax is actually off. I'm going to click this sucker on, and you notice it brought me down to my sales tax mode. Yes. Okay, and I'm going to leave that alone. We'll set it up when we get there. Do you wish to save them? No. Okay, finance charges. Okay, annual interest rate, your minimum finance charge, grace period. I like the way finance charges work in desktop way better than online, because with desktop, they don't just apply it to that last invoice. Okay, it brings it up as a charge. So here we go. Mark finance charge invoices to be printed. General. Okay. Show portions of an hour as decimal or minutes, and then this is just general things. Keep user logged in for however long. Okay. Log off every time a user closes QuickBooks. Okay. Integrated applications. If you do have applications integrated with your QuickBooks, they would be listed here. Items in inventory, this is one that I'm going to spend some time on. And let me just stop here for a second and say something. If you're brand new to QuickBooks and you're setting up a new file, make sure your first step is to set up your preferences. We hear about clients all the time who say, well, something doesn't work right, it's the software. And it's not always the software. Yeah, software is meant to work in certain ways. Usually those ways are based on trials and research of hundreds, if not thousands or hundreds of thousands of users and how most people would use it. So they do try to make software to where it's user friendly, but there are nuances across your demographics and people where they may want one thing to work differently than someone else. That's why you have your preferences. You set your file up to work the way you want. It may not have everything. That's why we have new features every year. But a lot of these features are available and a lot of these features can be chosen. Okay? So just do that before you say it's just the software. Just check your preferences and do yourself a favor and make sure it's not there. When calculating quantity available for my inventory, deduct quantity reserved for pending builds and quantity on sales orders. To me, that's kind of, yeah, you should. But again, there may be instances where you should not, depending on how your supply chain is and so on. Warn if not enough inventory to sell. When the quantity I want sells the quantity available. When the quantity I want to sell exceeds quantity on hand. Quantity on hand is like the physical amount you have. Quantity available, like if you have a sales order or something, it's going to take that out of quantity on hand, and that's going to be in quantity available. Don't allow negative quantities. Okay? Do not allow negative quantities. That's a lot of people do, and this is one of the things that I run into with inventory. And it's easy to do, especially if you're new with inventory. If you don't do a physical inventory every once in a while, or a cycle count, because they have cycle counts now where you don't do all of your inventory, you do little sections at a time, and we'll get into that more later. If you don't keep track of what you have on hand, you can run into things where maybe something's entered wrong and you start getting negative quantities. And again, back to the principles of accounting, you can't just go, well, I know it's negative, but it's not really, and just ignore that, because that fact that it says it's negative is being reflected somewhere in your system. Okay? It's somewhere. They don't go, nothing goes poof. Okay? It's somewhere. So if you see negative quantities, something's wrong. Period. End of story, end of discussion. We can go in and find out what's wrong and we can get that physical inventory and tie everything out. But you can't just go, well, I've got negative quantities, but ignore that because it's not right. Like, it's just like having a journal entry or a profit and loss or any report that is just not right. You have to fix it. So with that being said, I just wanted to say that because a lot of people that are new to inventory think, oh, well, it may be the wrong amount, but my books are right. And that's not possible, unfortunately. If the amount's wrong, your books are wrong. So multiple inventory. Okay. And you know what? I got to talking and I totally forgot to let you know. We are going to go into our advanced inventory settings now. Okay. Advanced inventory has been growing and growing. And for my manufacturing clients, it's incredibly popular. Okay. That's probably the #1 reason I have clients move to QuickBooks Enterprise, because of the inventory functionality that is available in product. Okay, so you have multiple inventory sites. I think it supports up to 20 inventory sites. I may be wrong on that, but I'm like 99% sure it's up to 20. Do you want to warn about inventory transfer numbers? You can do transfers of inventory from one location to the next, and you get a voucher for those. And that's what it's referring to there. When a transaction will cause inventory to go negative, do you want them to warn you or block the transaction? To me, I'd say block it, because again, I know there's something wrong. Now, the argument's been presented, if you're in the middle of a sale and you're trying to get your sale processed, you don't want to stop to go figure out why it says you have negative quantities. Understood. If that's the case, get the warning, go ahead and go back and figure out what happened with that negative quantity later. It could be something as simple as doing like a build and having negative quantities and the build being allowed for negative quantities, and then creating problems. In retrospect, that example may not be as simple as what I was thinking it was. So tracking bin locations within inventory sites. So if you have different parts of your warehouse that are labeled for, and it says here, row shelves or bins, you can use bins for just about anything. It doesn't mean bin, it means sub area. Okay, so if you have, don't let the word bin make you think it's a bin. It's a location, like a sub-location, container, whatever you want to call it. Okay, warn per bin location if I don't have enough inventory to sell. Serial and lot numbers. So you can have lot or serial numbers. You cannot have both. If you need both, sometimes depending on the use case, we can use custom fields to kind of work around that. But technically, you're not supposed to use lot and serial numbers at the same time. Okay, so you'll notice if you click yes, it wants you to pick. Okay, do you want serial numbers? Do you want lot numbers? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to leave this unchecked because I don't want to have to enter additional information during the demo, but that's available. Do you want to use FIFO? So QuickBooks Desktop uses average costing. With FIFO, that's first in, first out. So you can turn on FIFO in QuickBooks Enterprise with advanced inventory if you use FIFO. Personally, I'm a FIFO girl. I use FIFO for most applications. I'm not a huge fan of average cost. I find that for me, it is harder to go back and cost and troubleshoot if I feel like it's being costed incorrectly. In any case, FIFO, I like FIFO first in, first out, but depending on your industry, FIFO may not be the best costing method. So for you. Okay, so barcodes. I have done videos on barcodes. I do several videos on barcodes. I'm about to do another one for the TC51, which is also by Zebra. I just did one at TC25 last year. So the new scanner came out, the new inventory scanner came out. So you will see a video on that soon once I can get everything processed. But in any case, I'm going to turn barcodes on for right now and show you the barcode wizard. You see here it says I don't currently track barcodes in QuickBooks, and you can use the MPN or manufacturer's part number, you can use the item name field, or you can use purchase information to generate barcodes. Some customers keep the vendor barcode number as a way to keep things simple so they don't have to switch the label. You may be also under requirements where you have to get like specific UPC codes depending on your industry. Whatever happens, obviously follow best practice, but if you just need to assign barcodes to your items and you don't want to have to go through and manually pick a number for every single one, because who wants to do that, there is a barcode wizard here. Okay, now I'm just going to say MPN, and I'm going to say all items just because it's an empty file. What am I going to mess up? So almost done, hit finish. Okay, now if I had items and things in there, it would have now generated barcodes. And what you'll also notice is when we get to our item list and our inventory, we will see a barcode field. Okay, let's click over to site operations. Okay, this, I will put links to the sales order fulfillment worksheet and purchase order fulfillment worksheet, management worksheet, resources in the description of this video. I will enable them. You can use barcode scanning and picking, with your scanners on those. And I have mine, but I am not prepared to do that today because that requires some setup. Plus, I'd really rather do it when I have my TC51. So if you need to look for barcode videos, take a look at the ones I did last year. I think one got like over 4,000 hits, which blew me away because most of them get like maybe 100 on a good year. But still, if you have an Android phone, you can also pair that as a way to get away from having to buy all new equipment. It does not work with Apple. Okay, don't ask if it works on your iPhone. It does not work on your iPhone. If you have an Android phone, it does not scan barcodes. You have to get like a little thumb scanner that pairs with your Android phone through the Bluetooth, which will then enable you to do barcodes. Okay, so, but there you go. We're learning stuff today. Landed costs. You've yet to set up a landed cost account. I will also attach, well, you can actually look on the blog for our landed costs blog posts. I walk through screenshot by screenshot. Landed costs came out last year. I'll go ahead and set up my landed cost account now, since we're in our preferences. And landed costs is really simple. That's where you have freight and different costs that go into purchasing a product for resale, where you want to bundle all that together so you know the most accurate cost per item. That was a feature that I heard from my customers for years and years. We need an easier way to do landed costs. It used to be incredibly manual. And so they came up with this system. And I'm sure since the system's brand new, it'll become easier to use over time. But right now, it's still pretty easy to use. So landed cost account, they recommend using a current asset account. You can pick cost of goods now. But if you keep in mind that you're trying to bring your work through the WIP cycle, you're starting off with your raw goods, moving to work in process, and then going over to finished goods. Moving it to other current assets is the best thing, because technically, if you've got a lot of inventory, you should be using accrual accounting. If you're using accrual accounting, you need to make sure your WIP is reflected on your balance sheet, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call this landed costs. I think in my blog post I called it something else, but I'm just going to put landed costs. You can use existing, but as we talked about, this is a brand new file, so I don't think I've got an existing account set up. Shipping and handling items. I'm going to add an item here. Okay. Let's call it shipping and handling. I am so creative. Okay. And I did it wrong. Okay, shipping. Oh, wait. No. Okay. I was about to say, is this something we've got to, I couldn't remember. I thought maybe we have set it up. If you're not going to play nice with me on this, it's not going to play nice with me on this one. Okay. I'm going to hit add later, and I'm going to go into my item list and set this up. Let's hit remove. Let's try this one more time. What did I say about it being brand new and there may be, yep. It's not playing nice right now. We'll hit add later. We can also add it in the item list. So you know what I think it is? No, Add item to add any new item. These items, I believe we may need to add this in our item list before we link it here. So I'm going to add later. You've not mapped any item to landed costs. Okay, well, I'll go do that in a minute. Okay, hit OK. Now, this is kind of taking us off on a journey. Don't let me forget, we're on the items and inventory and preferences, but I don't want to let this go before I'm done. So hit OK. I know. Okay. Are you going to close out completely? No. Okay. Inventory. So let's go into our inventory center. And I'm actually going to go into my item list, actually. And I'm going to hit new. And I'm going to call this an other charge, shipping and handling. See, and you see this barcode number just popped up. That's from the barcode thing we just set up. Is this item used in assemblies or is it reimbursable? I'm going to say no. But we could always come back and turn it on depending on what it was. Freight and shipping costs. I may need to map. No, I think it'll do that for me. Okay, so let's go back into our preferences. And let's go over back into our company preferences, advanced inventory settings, landed costs, manage our cost account. Now let's see if it'll let us select it from the drop-down menu. I think it will. Let's see, change account. No. I believe we'll bring this up and then we'll click next, and I think it'll skip that part and go, there we go. Okay, add item. That's what I was doing wrong. So that's something to remember. You can't add new inventory or items straight from this menu. What it's saying is it's mapping the items. So make sure you add your items first. Now, if your experience is different, it wouldn't surprise me because my computer's been kind of odd lately. Okay, okay. Okay, so there's your landed costs setup. Jobs and estimates. So you can change these labels, right? Do you create estimates? Yes. Do you do progress invoicing? Yes. Don't print items that have a zero amount. Warn about duplicate numbers. Close estimates after converting to an invoice. Okay. Okay, company preferences on multiple currencies. We talked about this. You can turn it on. You cannot turn multi-currency off once you turn it on. Okay, just keep that in mind. And if you are on the fence, maybe you do business in two currencies and you're like, oh, which one should be my home currency? Just really think that through, because the US dollar as your home currency will give you more functionality than if you have a different currency as your home currency. Okay, payments. So credit. You can get paid by credit card. This is where I was going to talk about Intuit payments. With QuickBooks Enterprise, you actually get really nice rates on credit card processing. If you're interested in it, let me know. I'll get you some pricing. We can even do an apples to apples comparison. Don't set it up straight within the program, because if you do, then there's a couple things that can go awry. First off, you may not get the exact pricing that you were hoping to get. So it's always nice to have somebody who's kind of walking you through it, typically at no cost to you. The second thing is that for the first month that you're a QuickBooks Payments customer, there are the chances, just like with any other payment processor, that your behavior or processing is going to raise a flag because it's atypical. And of course it's atypical because you've only had your account for a week to a month or so. So you can probably expect to get at least one situation where you have to call them and send them the backup because they're just doing their due diligence and trying to keep us all safe. But if you work with us, when you get to that point, if you have a problem, we are here for you and we will walk you through the solution. Okay? Why would you not want that help? I don't know. Maybe I talk too much. That valid reason. Totally valid. I do talk a lot. You need to enable. Okay, so I'm going to hit no, but that's where and you can also do e-checks. Fantastic way to keep your payment processing down. And if you use e-checks, you can turn it off at the invoice level, where people are encouraged to pay with an electronic check before using credit cards. Credit cards are a percentage. So obviously if you're in manufacturing distribution, the bigger the invoice, the bigger chunk they're going to take, right? I mean, it's just math. If you use the bank transfers, there's typically a flat processing fee, which I guarantee you 99% of the time it will be cheaper than your credit card processing. Unless you sell widgets one by one, then maybe not. Still, check it out. Okay, do you want to send payment reminders? Yes. If it's open, prompt me at. Now, this is another thing. Man, I've got a whole bunch of soapbox issues. They have been advertising payment reminders on invoices as automatic. It is not. It is not automatic. Do not believe it is automatic. It prompts you to send them. How is that automatic? Okay. With QuickBooks Online, it will send it from QuickBooks Online automatically. True. With QuickBooks Desktop, it will send it automatically. False. Okay, what it will do is you can set up the payment reminders, and I've done a video on this already, so I will try to splice that in here because I'm not doing it again. Or I'll actually probably put a link to it or send you to the playlist, something. Anyway, and it tells you, hey, do you want to send this off now? Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't call it automatic. You make just don't. So it's not automatic, but it's pretty close. And if you like reviewing your emails before they go out, it's great. Okay. Payroll and employees, company preferences. What kind of payroll do you want? Everybody I talk to, not everybody. Ugh, stop making generalizations. Okay. Most people that I talk to that are looking to move to QuickBooks just assume that their payroll solution is always manual. Yes, there is enhanced payroll in QuickBooks Desktop. There's also assisted, and there's also full service. Depending on what your company's needs are, you need to pick the one that's best for their needs. And similarly, the full service product a lot of the time is cheaper than the other solution you're already using. I think they did something where, and some statistic they're saying it's like 40% cheaper. God bless marketing. I think that should be accurate. It sounds accurate, but you know, you always just want to compare. So they say it's on average about 40% cheaper. I, definitely get a quote if you're interested in full service. It is very cost effective, and I really like that it charges you each month versus each run. Like a lot of the big names out there will do each run. QuickBooks does each month. Okay. So anyway, all I'm saying is don't shut it down. And if you have heavy job costing, assisted payroll is going to be your best friend because assisted payroll allows you to do job costing in desktop. Most third-party payroll processors do not allow you to do job costing in desktop. Okay, they'll say they create an import file. That import file is a journal entry. Okay, that journal entry is mapped to your general ledger, to your chart of accounts, and it comes over. It does not come over at the payroll item level. Does not. If anybody watches this and they're like, oh yeah, but if you get it from such and such, it does, let me know because I will totally put that in my description. Anyway, if you use assisted payroll, it does your job costing for you. You don't have to do it all manually. So that's always great. Okay. So that's your payroll piece. We just talked about it. You can accrue sick and vacation time in here. I believe it supports 175 employees now. With enhanced, technically, I think they call it unlimited, but it has something to do with the batching, the number of data packets that are sent back and forth. So they do have a limit of like 150, I think 150 to 200 employees for full service. The exact number is escaping me at this moment, but it's right in that range. So if you have under like 175 employees or so and you are interested in full service, let me know, and I'm more than happy to continue this long dialogue that I've gone on. So moving on, reminders, I'm going to skip that. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of y'all use reminders and stuff. I don't. I just need my accounting. So summary reports, do you want to do accrual or cash basis? You can toggle this on and off at the report level, but this is your global selection. I usually match this to whatever your tax method is. On one of your tax forms, when you do your taxes end of the year, there will be a box. I am accrual, I am cash modified, or accrual modified or whatever it says. So I usually match that to there. What you do is totally up to you and your accountant. Okay. Collapse transactions. So on reports, they can be big and you can collapse them. You can do that at the report level too. I'm going to leave that off because I like seeing the granular level. Now, if you're going in for like a board meeting or something and you don't want them to see every single sub-account, that collapse function is awesome. Statement of cash flows. You can classify your cash to your statement of cash flows. I don't see this used as much as it used to be, but it's still there. Sales and customers. Okay, so custom pricing. So in Premiere and Pro, you have no. In Premiere, I believe you can use price levels, but with Enterprise Platinum, and let me say Advanced Inventory is also a Platinum level, you can do advanced pricing. I believe advanced pricing is in Gold too. So advanced pricing is just logic. It says, you know, based on this set of triggers or this group, the subgroup, we want pricing to be changed this way. I think they can do quantity. I think it can do types of customers and so forth. I haven't been in there in a minute, but anyway, you could pick ways to slice and dice your pricing. Okay. So, and then it says don't round, use the same rounding, set rounding in each rule. So I'm going to hit enable, but I'm not going to go any further than that. QuickBooks hates me right now because I keep changing all its preferences. Okay, so now that's done. Let's go back in. Where were we? Binders, reports, and graphs. Okay. And I'm not touching on my preferences because most of them are negligible. It's not really a big deal, but you feel free to check them out after you look through some of this. Sales and customers. What's your usual shipping? Your FOB. Packing list. Do not sell to overdue customers. To me, you know, I think that would be a smart move, but you know, sometimes there are customers where, you know, you've got a very established relationship with them and they have terms, and you know, there may be reasons that you'll be selling to them even though technically they're overdue. So, you know, have that on or off however you want. Do you want the collection center? I'll turn that on. We already talked about advanced pricing. Yes. So it's going to yell at me again. Sales tax. Do I charge sales tax? Yes. We wanted to say yes. Now, obviously in wholesale, no. Yeah, wholesale and in manufacturing, you may not need to charge sales tax. Okay. You may just have to get, you know, their, so what is it, their exclusion certificate or their certification, their sales tax certification certificate, whatever, the reseller certificate. In any case, so this is totally up to you depending on how you keep your records. If you do have to do sales tax, you know, you would set it up here. I'm going to actually just click no right now. Keep my life simple. Search, not a big deal. Send forms, service connection, and this is automatically connect, so on and so forth. Spelling, tax, 1099, yes. Time and expenses, if you track time, blah, 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 blah. So that's preferences, right? I dread to see how far along we are in this video. Is it okay? Okay, so let's scratch through preferences and let me make sure I'm touching on everything. Okay, customers is next. So for customers, you can see that this is empty. I'm going to show you how to set up a customer. If you have a customer ABC, do not click that opening balance. Do not put anything in that opening balance. Don't do it, right? If you have to say that they have opening balances because you're setting up their brand new file, then if you know how you're going to clear out the opening balance equity account, then go ahead. There used to be a trainer that would say, and it's accurate, basically what you need to do is enter in all your opening balances the first time you're setting up the program, right? And if you're working with us, this is what we do. Then once you have amounts in opening balance as the very last step to setting your file live, you move those down to retained earnings because you're netting everything out on your balance sheet to the file's balances in the previous one. So technically everything will match the previous file anyway, but you don't have that like that line item detail. Now, depending on if you're cash basis or accrual basis, would depend on how we would handle that. Because obviously if you're cash basis and you receive payment and everything's going to opening balance equity, then that's going to create problems down the road. So what we would do is we'd actually enter your open transactions in that case. Okay, so address information, you can see this, payment settings. I really like your payment settings. Most people don't fill this out, but it's really nifty. I talked about this in another video. Most companies are more liable, they will probably pay. I can't talk, I've been doing this too long. You should use something with a number in it. Due upon receipt is ambiguous, and it can be, I know technically most of us go, oh, well, if it's due upon receipt, it's due upon receipt. You write the check, you send it off. But apparently, psychologically, with AP departments, sometimes they will push that to the side because they don't know exactly the date that it's due. So account numbers, credit limits, you can set credit limits, put in the card information if you want to be able to process payments. Now, you have to make sure if you turn on the card information, you have to have your account, or you have to have your file password protected and have some other protections there for your customer's sake. Sales tax settings, we just talked about sales tax, where most of your customers in this vertical are probably going to be exempt from sales tax because they're reselling items. So they're going to have a resale number, and you can plug that in here. And I'm going to show you something else. Additional info. You have custom fields in QuickBooks Enterprise. You have several custom fields, and you can acquire them, have types of data, right? What do you want to use them on, and so forth. So that's part of the customization we'll do for you as we implement and coach you through your process. Okay, job info, job description, job type. Now, we just don't have the time to go through like the WIP and at a very high level of detail. But when you are doing your WIP reports, if you're wondering how it knows which jobs to bring into the WIP or work in process reports, it goes off your job status. Okay, so if it's in progress, it's going to put it on your WIP. Okay, if it's closed, it won't put it on your WIP because technically it's not work in process anymore, if that helps. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. Okay, so let's hit OK. All right, once we have our customer set up, you noticed I said I was going to show you something in a minute. If you have a copy of their reseller certificate, you can then add it using the little clippy. Now, as this is a desktop software, there will be a drive somewhere that's being labeled your document library, okay? I'm going to use an attachment that I pre-created for here. Attachment for demo, and hit attach. Okay, so that's all you do. You click it and you attach it and hit done. Doc Center is basically going back to wherever that file is where it's saving all your library attachments. Okay, here's your quick reports under your customer here, and it does have a lot more detail. You can have multiple contacts listed, whereas the QuickBooks Online is a little more limited. What are your to-dos? Okay, you can add new to-dos. Okay, for me, I use Microsoft Planner and I use Microsoft Do or To-Do. I know they changed the name a little bit at one point, so I don't use a whole lot of this stuff in the program because I have a different board, and you don't want to hear about my day and how I do my day, but I'm very punch list item, and I have to keep my punch list in one place. So typically I have a list outside of the program, but if you've got teammates and you need to keep everything compartmentalized, it's a great place to put that. Here's your notes. With AR, I know we use the notes section for light collections, for, hey, you want to talk to Sherry for this, you want to talk to Dave for this, that kind of things. Just whatever notes you have. Sent email, so this is email that's been sent. When you pair email with your QuickBooks Enterprise, it does latch on to your Outlook account. So that was attached. I want to show you something else, but maybe it's not going to let me. No. Okay. Perfecto. Okay. So we have a customer set up. Just because I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm now going to set up a job. Job 1 under customer ABC. Wow, I don't know how to do my capitalization today. Yeah, just use it proper case. Okay. So we talked about all this, so we've really kind of talked about a lot of this, except I will go down to the job info. Okay, job description, blah, 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 blah. You see all that? Sounds all good? Okay. Oh, and you do have multiple ship tos and such. Okay. Additional info. There we go. Okay. Hit OK. Perfect. And see, it even tells you when there's an attachment here. Okay. So that's your customer, that's your job. I think you can go up to 5 levels, 5 for sub customers or jobs. You can call them whatever you want. I've heard both. Add multiple customers and jobs, so you can batch enter customers. There you go. If you have, and this actually just brings you back to that multiple list or batch list, whatever it is, multiple list entry, you can copy and paste from Excel here. Okay. Okay, so that's customers. I'll go through here. So you can create estimates. Okay, create an estimate, and we're going to pick an item. And under items, we'll go through the different types of items in a minute, but for now, I'm just going to pick service to be easy. Okay, if I know service items you can't really scan, right, because it's a service, but I do have customers that will keep like a binder at their front desk or wherever of barcodes printed out, and you can, you know, scan it for that too. Just a little tip. Unit of measure with advanced inventory. It might be with standard inventory too. I think it's advanced inventory, but I might be wrong. You can track multiple units of measure, which is basically just where you have a base measurement, such as a unit, and then maybe that unit comes in a case of 12, so you'll have like your base units 1, and then your you can also do 1 base unit, 12 base units equals 1 case, and so forth. Okay, is this service used in assemblies or performed by a sub or a partner? Obviously, if you use subcontractors, you would turn that on. If maybe during assembly you were trying to cost something out in your bill of materials, you know, maybe you would say processing or something. You could use it as part of a build for costing purposes. The use case, I guess you'd have to visit. What account do you want this to go to? I'm just going to pick sales. And then what notes do you have? And you can do timestamps under the notes, which I think is pretty nifty. Okay. Custom fields, we talked about custom fields. You can do quantity discounts. See that? That's pretty cool, right? Quantity discounts. If we buy so many of this is what the discount is. Okay? Hit OK. Cannot hold on to my pencil today. Default service item. Now, this site and bin, you know where these came from us setting up advanced inventory, right? I say 1. Okay. Change your standard rate. Do you know that? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay, save and close. Okay. Now, okay. Okay. So actually, okay, here we go. We went into the estimate that we just did. You can attach files here. You also have these neat buttons called create invoice, create sales order, create purchase order. You can do these separately as well, but it's also helpful if you just know, hey, you know, such and such estimate went forward. I want to go ahead and push this forward. You can. This over here, Start Project, links to a third-party application called Maven Link. It's a great program. There's several different programs out there. I wouldn't let that limit your selection, but if you check it out and you like it, then there you go. Maven Link is mainly geared towards the professional services industry though, so I don't know how applicable it would be in a manufacturing environment, but it might be something. Okay, also you may want to notice at the top you have different tabs. Those tabs always like to hide from you. Okay, you can manage templates, do different templates. So if maybe I don't call my stuff an estimate, I call it a quote. You can change that. Okay, you can customize data layout. You can move little text boxes all over the place. You can add different columns. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can even check your spelling, which for a lot of us, that might be necessary. Send, ship, you can email it, prepare a letter, blah, blah, blah. Reports, reports here, what's your transaction history and so forth. Search, okay. Okay, so there you go. For this one, I'm going to say, let's create a sales order. Boom. See how easy that was? I know. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so here's our sales order. Now, if you remember, now I know this is a service item, but per our earlier instruction, this would take away, if it was not a service item, if it was an inventory item, it would take away from our quantity available. It would not take away from our quantity on hand because sales orders, just like estimates and just like purchase orders, are non-posting. Okay? Okay, and again, you can attach files and so forth here. Okay, I'm going to hit save and new. Okay, perfect. Now, we've gone through estimates, we've gone through sales orders. You do have a sales order fulfillment worksheet. Since I haven't done much other than click the turn it on button, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of information for us to go over here. I do have some blog posts on my blog at certumsolutions.com that goes through how to use the sales order fulfillment worksheet, and I will definitely try to do another video to go over this. But basically, you can actually assign this to your pickers in the warehouse. It's going to want me to log in. I'm not going to do it. So it will bring this through here, bring it through the picking and packing process. Express pick packs, just where you're doing both of it at once. You can also assign it to warehouse workers. So I think I usually have a warehouse worker, Andy or Gary or something. There is a process you can go through where you can track this in the warehouse. So it's not like a full-fledged warehouse management solution that's got, all the bells and whistles, but what it is it's just enough to be extremely productive and to keep out all the fluff to me. So there you go with that piece. Sales order fulfillment worksheet, create invoices, which what we should do is we should go back to that other one and just hit the create invoice button, right? Right. It says create sales orders. Now here are these little navigational buttons. Go backwards and you go. There you are. Let's create this invoice, okay? Yes. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. One click. I did nothing. That's my kind of invoice. You can assign classes to any of these transactions, by the way. We did turn classes on, but we didn't talk about different use cases. You can use them for groups, teams, divisions. What color? It doesn't matter. It's a free-form field. It's like a custom field. So, all right, save and close. All right, so we're getting somewhere. Okay, create batch invoices. Uses individual customer information to create invoices. Be sure that you set up your customer information correctly. There you go. And then you create groups, right? So, and groups, I believe billing groups have been around. I might be wrong. One type of group has been around, but they added like customer groups and things like that recently. You used to use certain kinds of groups under statements, and then this year they added some additional types of groups. Yes, I want to cancel. But you do have the batch invoicing piece. Sales receipts is like we talked about, where you're getting paid at the time of the sale and you don't want it to hit your income, so that's why it kind of looks like a point of sale. I have customers that use it as a point of sale. If you don't have a lot of volume, if you have a ton of volume, invest in a point of sale system, okay? It's not going to be cheap, but QuickBooks Point of Sale in particular, one of my good friends, Leah Swain, actually did a great video on recently. And so when you get to the point where you need demographic information, busiest times of day, you maybe need to handle multiple cashiers, things like that, start looking at a point of sale solution. And do me a favor and watch Leah's video on the point of sale demo. So here we have customer and job, class, so forth. You can add time and cost. So if you've been logging time or logging delayed charges, you can add that here. And then it has a lot of the same tabs at the top like the others do. Here you can even ship it. Okay. Okay, so what you would do is you would enter all your stuff here, and then you would hit how they're paying you, and you would process the sale. Okay. Statement charges, I'm not going to touch on that too much. It's just adding delayed charges that are going to pop up on a statement at a later date. Assess finance charges, tying to the finance charges we did earlier. This is where you're actually assessing them and applying them to statements. Payment reminders, we talked about in another video. Look for my video on QuickBooks Desktop payment reminders. It's not automatic. Okay, and there's those customer groups popping up again. Receive payments, I'll click on real quick. Okay, it looks very similar to the sales receipt piece, okay, and except for, let's see if it will pop it up. There you go. It would list all the open ones, right? If you don't enter an amount received, it automatically calculates it. Yeah, so that's good. Do you have a reference number you need to call in? And then down here you can see discounts and credits applied, things like that. So if they had a credit and stuff, you could apply that using this button, but this person doesn't because we just set this up. Unapply the payment, look up the customer and invoice, attach a file, and so forth. The top ribbon I'm not going to touch on too much because it's very similar no matter which form you're in. I'm just going to hit save and close now. Okay. Create credit memo. So they got their stuff and it was damaged. You need to do credit memo. You would do that here. And it looks just like the other forms. Okay. There you go. Income tracker. So that's kind of like the money bar in QuickBooks Online. In QuickBooks Online, we always call it the money bar. I think we call it the money bar in desktop too. Anywho, it's just that dashboard at the top that says what money you've got coming in and out. Okay. I'm going to start speeding it up here so we can try to get through the rest of this demo without you falling asleep. If you're not already asleep, if you are asleep, wake up. Hello. Talking here. Rude. Okay. You can do leads. You can import multiple leads. You can bring leads in from Excel. This is kind of like a little database. The one thing I would say about the leads is you can't do invoices and stuff against them until they create a customer. If you have a lot of leads, though, it's going to take up space in your data file. So if you feel like you have enough leads to where you really need to look at a CRM or customer relationship manager, I would do so in the interest of keeping your file size manageable and needing to babysit it less. Just my 2 cents. Lead center, add credit card process. I'll skip that. We talked about that. Link payment service, skip that. We talked about that. Enter time. You can activate T-sheets. So if you want to talk to us about this, we do have QuickBooks Enterprise Diamond, which actually comes bundled with a lot of good stuff. We just had a customer today move forward on that, and it's becoming more and more popular because QuickBooks has so many different labels under the umbrella. It's getting to where they have a full, like, I know I shouldn't say ERP because I've worked with ERPs, and I feel like it's getting pretty close to being an ERP. You're really starting to approach the mid-market with the solutions they have. So with activating T-sheets, you've got like geographically based time tracking. You have the ability to say, I want Bob to be able to apply time to these customers, but not these customers. Like you can slice and dice, right? Use a weekly timesheet, which I'll click on that so you see what it looks like. Obviously, we're not going to fill it out, but you would pick a name. Okay, I'm going to say vendor because I don't think I've got payroll turned on in this file. KDB. Nobody can say my last name, so everybody calls me KDB. But you can call me Katie Bunschoten if you want. It's not too hard, but it did take me a while to learn too. Okay. Okay. So then I would pick my customers. I would pick my service items. You know, I would add notes. So for me, I'm in professional services. I would say what I actually accomplished, right? Because that's what people want to know. If you're getting paid for something, what are you getting back? So I would put in my accomplishments here, the number of hours, blah, blah, blah. There you go, and there's your timesheet. It's a lot better than doing it in Excel and hand entering it somewhere. Gosh, I remember those days. Okay. Enter single time activity, which is probably what I use the most because then it lists everything as a separate line item. Okay. And then once obviously you create an invoice and you move time onto the invoice, it would be billed. And then here you've got your timer. Now that's something interesting. In QuickBooks Online, you do not have a timer. You can either hand enter it or you can use T-sheets. Should we use T-sheets? Okay. Marketing and customer tools, work order management and EDI service. I cannot remember. True Commerce EDI, I think, is the one that comes bundled with it. Well, not bundled. You don't get it for free, but you can add the EDI service if you click that button. Work order management, I think, goes into it. Field services, but I might be wrong. Item list, we've already talked about the item list, and we can click on change item prices real quick. So if you need to bulk change prices, kabam, okay, which is really helpful when you have a million SKUs, right? Okay, so that's customers. I'm marking that up. Let me make sure we covered everything. We covered invoicing. We covered the shipping, kind of. We covered the pick, pack, and ship, kind of. Under the file, biscuits, shipping. I was looking right at it. You could go in here to set this up. I'm going to click one, but I don't have it set up, so we'll see what pops up for you. Shipping system warms up. QuickBooks Enterprise is kind of like a bunch of teeny weeny little apps that are bundled onto one big app. So QuickBooks Enterprise, the core system, is what you're looking at. You have QuickBooks Advanced Reporting, which is really a different program that was originally developed by ClickView. And now, there you go. Let me close that window behind us so you don't have to look at all my stuff. Okay, Shipping Manager. So under Shipping Manager, you can say, I agree to terms and conditions. If you use the online version of like UPS or whatever, it's going to look very similar. You just put your account in and everything. I used to keep a Zebra printer hooked up to my computer and it would work. So I always, like when it comes to any peripheral, people when they're new to the system always want to say, well, exactly which one should I get? Models change. Things get... some things aren't supported, it gets replaced by things that are supported. And then beyond that, you have multiple ones that can be supported. I can't tell you every single one that would be supported, but what you can do is just make sure there's a return policy. That's what those things are there for. And do your best to try to pick one that you think will work. But if it doesn't work, don't beat yourself up and don't leave it to the last minute. Okay? So there you go. Yes. Okay, so we've got shipping, pick, pack, ship. That's all done. Customer section is done. Boom. Oh, I feel so accomplished. At this time, my throat is on fire from all this talking, so I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to go get some water and I will be back, and when I get back we will touch on vendors. So we're almost approaching halfway. All right, speak to you in just a minute. Okay, hi, I'm back. So one thing I forgot to cover real quick under customer is under the payment receipts. If you go to receive payments, you can now customize the receipt that your customer receives. So that's new in this year's version. So again, I'm highlighting that, okay? And we talked about customer groups briefly, but if you want to see where to do customer groups, you want to go to lists and manage groups down at the bottom, which I know we talked about, but we didn't really go into it. And for customer groups and vendor groups are the two kinds of groups you can create now, and that's new. Okay, let's do test group. I actually also do this in the payment reminders video because you have to have the groups in order to do the payment reminders automation. So you just pick customer type, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then you can select here. Something to remember, you can only have customers and vendors be part of one group, so they can't be parts of multiple groups. That's something to keep in mind. Something I figure they'll probably change in the future, but just hit cancel. So we've talked about that. So let's see. QuickBooks Desktop Manager, I'm not going to go through that on this call, but if you're trying to update QuickBooks now, there's actually a QuickBooks Desktop Manager tool, which will walk you through that so it's a little bit more user-friendly than it was in the past, especially if you're updating or moving your QuickBooks. And we talked about QuickBooks Capital, which is for the business loans, and that is they've been working in the banking sector kind of a little bit for years. It started out with QuickBooks Capital, and I want to say we were told about it 5 years ago, but it's just been kind of quiet under the radar. It's getting to be bigger and bigger, obviously, now, and now they have QuickBooks Cash too. So I expect to continue to see their banking efforts to grow. Okay, so we're going to jump into the vendor piece now. And again, forgive me for referring to my notes. I want to make sure that I hit on everything, and I love to free talk. I hate using a script because I feel like, well, if you ever watched my pitch video, I was using a script, and by the time I got it right, it took me 24 takes, and I was ready to throw my computer out the window. So I don't do well with scripts. I do better free talking, but I also want to make sure I hit on every point. So we're going to talk about vendors now. And I'm going to go over to the vendor center first, and we're going to look at the vendors. You see that I'm there. That's because I entered my name as a vendor to do the time tracking. So let's do a new vendor, and you'll notice you don't have sub-vendors here, right? So you have sub-customers, which are also called jobs, but you don't have sub-vendors. So that's interesting. Anyway, vendor ABC. You have a lot of the similar fields as you do in the customers. Okay. Vendor tax ID for 1099s. You always want to make sure you do that this is the thing. One of my first jobs was at Turner Construction, like this huge construction hub in Cincinnati. I loved my job. But with them and with other larger companies, when you have a vendor, you don't just go, I have a vendor, put them in the books. It's I have a vendor, let's get a W-9, and maybe other vendor paperwork that's required for whatever they're doing. So that's something that I feel like I bring from the corporate world, is that, we have small businesses, but these larger companies or these corporations and these very, by the book, or that's the wrong word, but like rules-driven, policy-driven companies, they do this for a reason. It eliminates human error. So at the end of the year, you're not going, oh, I've got like 200 vendors in there. I don't know if any of them are eligible for 1099, and I have no W-9s on file. Do yourself a favor, pull it when you set them up, and do yourself another favor and ask for refreshed information every year, because companies may come and go. They may also get DBAs and other changes, stuff that may need to be put on their records. Like a classic example, you get one vendor and they're under one name. You get another vendor the next year, they're under another name. You go to do the 1099, it's the same place. They added a DBA, somebody entered it in twice. So just do yourself a favor, preparation is everything. Enter in your vendor tax ID. If you do have contractors and things, I believe this is a contractor item, like QuickBooks Enterprise contractor, enter the workers' comp information. So that's not in here by default. In contractor is a field, but you could always do something like just attach a certificate, and enter whenever that certificate's up, enter in a reminder somewhere to check again. But you may not need that. That's more like a contractor thing. So we have vendors. Did I enter? Yes. So add vendor. And I totally put in the vendor and did not hit save. Save. Okay. Now, something quickly to cover from all lists. This is something for all lists. You can actually make them inactive if you no longer work with them. You can't delete a list item unless there's absolutely nothing tied to it, but you can make them inactive. Okay? And then if you right-click on any list item, it usually gives you a shortcut to things that you may need to access for them. Okay? Then you do have the tab for transactions, which I honestly don't use that much, but it's there. Right? You can do mail merges for a lot of this stuff, but again, a lot of people don't do that anymore. If you are interested in that, though, it's great. There's your bill tracker, which is kind of similar to your income tracker. It's got your money bar. There you go. Okay. Vendors, bill trackers. So then let's enter a bill. Vendor ABC. See, I did that for a reason. Date, 200. Okay, you can enter memos. Something clever, another accountant taught me one time. You can actually do custom reports based on the memo field. So if there are certain things you kind of want to tag and bring into a report, put that information in the memo field. Okay? So here's your expenses. Okay, so I'm just going to add $200, miscellaneous expense. Okay, if you need to apply it to a customer or a job, you could then say, hey, I spent $200 on this, but it's really billable to my customer, and that's where you would pick the job or the customer and hit billable, and then you can also add your class if you need to. Okay. Okay. So then obviously you want to pay the bill once it's due, and it says I don't have a bank account set up, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Cash account. One thing that I typically do, which I will not do in this one, when I have liquid cash accounts, like your operations account, your payroll account, if you have one, you know, maybe cash reserves account, things like that, I will do a header account that'll say cash accounts, and then I'll have all those underneath. That way you can not only see the balance in individual accounts, but it rolls up and you get a cumulative total at the bottom. Okay, and that's where you would hit, if you were doing that for like your operations, you'd hit sub account of, and it would say cash accounts, go. Okay, I'm going to unclick that. If you need checks or anything, let us know. We're more than happy to get that set up for you. So now I've set up my cash account, right? And it says show bills. I want to pay this one. If I had credits in the system, I could apply them down here. Okay, if I had discounts, like it's net, you know, what is it, 2% net 30 or whatever they say, you could enter discounts, and then you can go to, if you need to look at the original bill, you can do that. You can also do check or credit card. You used to not be able to pay via credit card in the screen. It was like this whole clearing account debacle that you had to do. You can now do that. You can assign a check number, okay, and so on and so forth. So that's your pay bill screen. And if you say to be printed, obviously they queue up, and there's actually another field where you print your checks all at the same time. So for this one, I'm going to say that I paid it with an ACH. You can do that. Okay, done. There. Okay, create purchase orders. Oh, I almost skipped it. Receipt management. Would you believe, short side story, I was talking to a customer the other day about how much I like being able to scan receipts on the app to QuickBooks Online and how that did not exist in desktop. Lo and behold, new this year, receipt management. You still cannot email receipts to a particular email account. So like, you know, and send a receipt to Cubo, whatever your company name is at cubodocs.com. That's still online exclusive, which is also, PS, a very favorite feature of mine. I love that feature. But you do get an app now. So what you would do to use the receipt management piece is you would actually go to your app store on your device, your cell phone or tablet, and you would look for the QuickBooks desktop app, and you would download that. Then you would pair it with your, you log in, obviously, then you pair it with your data file, and then it will take those receipts and bring it into QuickBooks for you. So you can scan it on your phone. See, and it wants me to log in. I'm not going to do it. And you can scan it on your phone, and that brings it into like a portal to be matched to your expenses. Now, how cool is that? You know, I love that. I love that. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to scratch off that we've talked about receipt management here. Okay. Okay, barcode, label, prices. I want to make sure I don't skip any of this. Landed costs. I've already talked about landed costs. And alternate vendor reports. Yeah, we should talk about that. Alternate vendor reports. I'm going to hold off to talk about those when we're going through items, because they really more pertain to all items than they do to vendors. I know it sounds crazy, but alternate vendors, in case you're not familiar with them, is when you have one primary vendor for certain items. And then alternate vendors, you can have up to 4 alternate vendors. If that vendor's not available, or you want to check alternate vendor pricing, you can do that as well. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So you can create a purchase order, and all these forms are pretty similar, you know, in the way that they're set up. You can see here you can also do item receipts, so you can receive items against a purchase order. So if you do the purchase order, you receive items. You also have enhanced receiving, which, another soapbox topic, Some people may love enhanced receiving. To me, it overcomplicates things. It breaks it off to where, receiving the bill and receiving the items are two separate things. But you can't say enhanced receiving for so many vendors, but don't use it for other vendors, which then doubles your work for the ones that you don't want enhanced receiving on. So don't turn on enhanced receiving unless you're 100% sure, because that's another one of those things, once it's on, can't turn it off. And I do get people or clients that'll come up and say, I really wish I hadn't done that because I did not want enhanced receiving. And the only way to actually turn it off is to completely rebuild your company file. Who wants to do that, right? So here we go. So here you can see vendor price here. Okay. So this is kind of like part of that alternate vendor thing, which we really should talk about that later. Okay, so create purchase orders. So we all know what a purchase order is. It's a non-posting transaction. It's when you're placing a request for a purchase with a vendor, which then gets it moving, and it's kind of a holding place until you receive a bill. It also, or an item, and it also shows that your company has authorized that purchase, right? In theory, nobody's going to send out a purchase order if they're not authorizing the purchase. But I don't know. You never know. Somebody might be feeling goofy one day. Okay, attach file, formatting, reports, and search, right? Okay, purchase order. Okay, so typically the purchase order, you're buying goods. And again, I don't want to get into this too far, but I will create an inventory part here, just so we know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MPN. Barcode number 654321. Unit measure, if we wanted that on, we could turn that on. Widgets are cool. Okay. Cost, sales price, COGS account, landed costs. It's not turned on for this. Okay. Income account. Sales, preferred vendor. Vendor ABC. And alternate vendor. Okay. That's where we're going to get to in a little bit. Inventory information, so the asset account. So you know how we were talking about WIP and taking raw goods to finished goods and all the other good stuff. You're going to want to assign an asset account for this so that while it is in process or it's on hand in inventory, that you've got it assigned to an asset account. Okay. What's your reorder point? This does come into play. These are not just dummy fields. If you have less than this, what do you want? Because there's another feature in QuickBooks Enterprise where you can do automatic purchase orders, which basically goes, hey, what items are below the reorder point? It brings it up in a worksheet, and then you pick the stuff you don't want to order, and the rest you create purchase orders for, right? So since we turn on advanced inventory, it's asking us for inventory site info because we turn on multiple inventory sites, but it should just set it to a default since I'm not going to open that. And good. Okay, there you go. So I'll set it to default. Okay, do you have a bin assigned to this item and so forth? That's all stuff that we need to set up separately. Okay, quantity. All right, rate, $5. Yeah, I probably should. Okay, if you're buying them for a particular customer, you could list that here. Amount, received, open. Now you notice a drop ship. You can say that it's drop ship. Okay. Save and close. Boom. There you go. There you go. Okay, purchase order management worksheet. Okay, so you notice that we have a purchase order here. So if you were receiving stuff in, this is another one of those spreadsheets where you could assign this to people in the warehouse and say, here, we're assigning it here, or maybe we're saying it's drop ship or whatever. Okay, and you can assign all that stuff and you can have that received. And I hate it when it asks me to log in. Okay, and so once it's received, you know, it would go ahead and say print and receive. Let's see, print and receive. See how this shows. And see, that's where it's saying receiver. So what you would do is once you have your warehouse workers set up, you would have those warehouse workers assigned here. And that's all done. through the vendor list. You set up a vendor known as your warehouse workers, and I'm not signing in. Okay. Okay, so, but anyway, it's pretty easy. You just click, click, click. Perfect. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, so then we have that piece done. You can receive items and enter bill, or receive items and enter bill for received items. There you go. Okay. You can scan barcodes to receive it in, or to, and yeah. Select your purchase orders. You can also calculate landed cost, which we talked about a little bit before. Okay, receive items. Beautiful. Okay. Enter bill for received items. So if you have received your items in and you haven't entered the bill yet, this will match it up with item receipts that are not matched up with a bill. Okay, employees. So, barcode label prices. Okay, so one of the things I should talk about, but I don't need to show you, now on barcode labels that are done, it used to not show pricing, but now it does. So if you have barcoding turned on, you can now put pricing on the barcode. And then we have batch delete for sales orders, but that's only in the accountant version, so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Perfect. So I think that that's basically everything for vendors. It's a little bit easier than customers. We'll get to inventory shortly. Let me see where we are. We talked about vendor profiles. We talked about alternate vendors. We talked about jobs. Well, we talked about jobs under customers, actually. Okay. Inventory. So I think I've left employees to next. Okay, inventory center. Perfect. So your inventory center obviously is going to show you all of your inventory. You can assign images to it and so forth. New inventory item. Okay, and you know what? I didn't show you this, but I'm going to close that little ribbon so I've got a little bit more real estate to show. Okay, inventory part. Let me go through the different types of items, okay? Service items, self-explanatory. Things you do for a customer, that's a service item. Inventory parts are like your widgets, right? You may buy that widget and sell that widget. You may also buy that widget, turn it into a super widget, and sell a whole kit full of widgets, hopefully combined with other stuff. Inventory assembly is what I just talked about. So if you have an inventory part like a widget and you combine that with, you know, other manufacturing parts and turn it into a whole other product, not like I'm grouping them together and selling them together. No, whole other product, that's creating an assembly. Non-inventory part is how do I easily say this? It's an inventory part, but you're not actually tracking what's on hand. So if you are kind of lean, you buy stuff and drop ship it, and you don't really have inventory in-house, it's a non-inventory part. You can still, a lot of people think that means you can't report on what you've sold, but you can. You can still report on what you've sold. You just don't do like stock status by item reports and stuff. Fixed assets, self-explanatory, your buildings and stuff. You've got your other charges, which is how you're going to set up your landed costs. It can also be late fees and things. Subtotal, if you need to group a bunch of items up on a form and create a subtotal, you can do that. If you need to group items together, you can do that. You discount your payment. Item name and number. Is it a sub-item of? If you have groups, what's your MPN? What's your barcode number? And then you can actually print labels to put on your items based on what you put in this barcode number screen too. So keep that in mind. Do you have multiple units of measure? And we've kind of touched on this. And then what alternate vendors do you have? Okay, so here's your alternate vendors. Okay. Preferred vendor. Let's just add preferred vendor. Okay. 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 And then we talked about inventory assets. So I'm going to call this super widgets, actually. Okay. So, but before we keep going, so we talked about that discount payment. Okay. So always add your reorder points like we talked about. Not adding reorder points, it seems like it wouldn't mess anything up, but if it's an inventory item, it's going to mess something up. So don't do it. Just make sure you add them. Inventory site list, that's showing up because we have advanced inventory turned on. You have your new inventory item, your new assembly item, which is really, you can still do that from the item list. Adjust the quantity. So if you need to do an inventory adjustment, this is where you do it. Okay. Okay. Adjust quantity. Okay, cycle counts. This you will need your scanner for, and you have to sign in again. So cycle count is like kind of like doing your physical inventory worksheet, but it's where you break it up. So if you have like a ton of SKUs and you're like, I'm going to count this section of my warehouse today, this section of my warehouse tomorrow, or whatever period, you know, and just kind of make a cycle so it's more manageable. That's a cycle count. Really easy. Okay. I know. So you have to match that up to your inventory scanner in order to handle those. Calculate the transfer inventory. We talked about those transfer inventory vouchers. You can print this off, which I think is pretty handy. Build assemblies. So the assemblies, you may enter an assembly item. You may assign the BOM or bill of materials. But you do actually have to create and build that assembly. It doesn't just go poof. Now you can auto build sub-assemblies, like a certain number of sub-assemblies. Like if one assembly turns into another assembly and oh my gosh, we're turning into, you know, Alice in Wonderland, going down rabbit holes. But you can, you know, build sub-assemblies at the same time. And so let's go ahead and add a new assembly item so that I can show you the BOM, because the inventory assembly looks a little bit different from the others. And let me also actually show you this. You see how this has two sides? That's called a two-sided item or double-sided item in QuickBooks World. If you have like service, this is like a one-sided item, but if you click this, boom, turns it into a two-sided item. See? It's magic. Okay, inventory assembly. Down here's where you'd put your BOM. I get that question a lot. Where do I keep my BOM? So what you would do is you would have your BOM here. You'd have everything that's required to make this item. Okay. And then when you go to build it, you'd pick this and it would pull, now pay attention, it pulls those items out of stock to build this assembly, right? Right? Okay. Just so we're clear on that. Okay, I want to say perfect. Okay, so that's basically, that's how the assemblies work. Transfer inventory, build assemblies, create purchase orders, we've already talked about. And some of these cross, because QuickBooks is all about making things easy to find. So they know people may not be experts at things, but they will want to know how to work, how to do different tasks, and they're going to want it in an intuitive place where they go, hey, I need to do this. Oh, look, it's right where I thought it'd be. Okay, so you'll see some things duplicated. Physical inventory worksheet, this is not something you can go tuk, 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 and type in there. This is something you print out, fill it out. I know it's a little old school, and then you can go in and update your physical inventory. Okay, set reorder points. So if you didn't listen and you did not put your reorder points, you can do that here. If you have your sites turned on, you can also set it up by site. Banking. Okay, well, and so let's just say that concludes the inventory piece. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, no, I think we're good. We're good there. So we've touched on, and then the barcode scanning we touched on earlier during the preferences section. But if you have additional questions on barcode scanning, let me know, since I don't have mine hooked up right now. I do have several blog posts on the subject and a couple videos too. Items, we touched on items, we touched on assemblies, we touched on landed costs. Okay, okay, okay. Perfect. Okay. So moving on from inventory, we're going to go into employees, but I'll only talk about it briefly. We already talked about payroll packages, so that was most of what I was going to discuss. But you can set up your employees here. Boo, 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 boo. And what ideally you would do is you would pair this with a payroll service that was applicable to your needs. So I don't prefer manual inventory because I feel like, again, that leaves a big chance of human error. Leave it to the professionals. But you can do enhanced payroll, and it's actually included with Gold, QuickBooks Enterprise Gold. But just go ahead and get your full service payroll. Give yourself a break. Because honestly, the cost that's involved in that is usually less than the labor it is for you to actually keep up with all that. But that's just me. Okay, and then we talked about T-sheets being available. Perfect. Now, all that really leaves for us is talking about user permissions and reporting. So we talked about reporting a little bit. Okay. Oh, let me show you this little trick. Let's close all those dang windows that I keep opening just because. Look at that. Let's clear this baby out. Let's get some desk space, huh? Perfect. Reports. They do have a report center, and again, I don't use a lot of the centers. I generally stick with the lists, but if you want to use the report center, you're more than welcome to. A lot of people prefer it. Okay. So you can bring them here you can open them here from a visual perspective. Okay. Memorized reports. It comes with several memorized reports. Canned. So most of these are just default. All memorized report is where, the customization or the filters and stuff are memorized, so you can pull it up whenever you want. Okay. You can, unbeknownst to many, import report templates. So if you have multiple company files, which we'll talk about condensed reporting in a second, and you have a specific report that you have in one file and you'd like to carry it to the other file, you can actually export those report filters, the template, and import it to the other one, and shabam. The one thing to make sure of is if you have custom fields in the one, make sure you have them in the other, or vice versa, because your custom fields, obviously, if it doesn't know where it's going or coming from and stuff, that can cause problems. Or it just won't work. So memorized reports, you can set up your own memorized reports. You can set up scheduled reports. You can comment on reports, really good for board meetings and such. Company snapshot, really, I think it's the same. Yeah, here we go. It's a very visual board here. Okay. There you go. And you can add widgets, but it's very default widgets. They're not like super custom widgets, so it's not like Power BI or Power BI, depending on who you talk to, because people like say it both ways. By Microsoft, where you can customize all your different widgets yourself. And again, just like advanced reporting, it's not always, user-friendly. So anyway, we've talked about that. Advanced reporting, I'm going to see if it'll open for me. I don't know if it will, but I'm going to leave it till last. Process multiple reports. Do you want to do statement writing? So if you're like you're a CPA or something, you're trying to do reviewed financials, then that may be helpful for you. Combine reports from multiple companies. A lot of people don't realize this, but you do have consolidated reporting available in QuickBooks. Okay. I can't remember how many companies it'll do. 4 is sticking in my head, but I'm not 100% sure that's right. And it only does your basic financials, okay? So like your P&L and your balance sheet and a couple others. If you're looking for a very specific report on widgets or something across multiple business units, then you're probably going to want to invest in like a different reporting software. And on that, and different reporting packages out there are best for different needs. So don't just pick a reporting software and think it's going to work. So that's what happened with Fathom. As we had this advanced QuickBooks Online Advanced, people go, oh, it's got Fathom, it's got advanced reporting. But they're like, no, it doesn't. It does KPI, like top level reports. It doesn't do how many widgets, across multiple business. It doesn't do it. It's KPI. It's business performance. It's not granular reporting. Boom. Okay. Manufacturing and wholesale reports. So there's your specialized industry reports available here. We've talked about a lot of these already. Company and financial. Okay. Customers and receivables. Sales. Look at all these reports. Okay. That's one of the things where you kind of look at QuickBooks Online and love it to death. I use it, actually. I have a very simple business model. And and you go, wow, you cannot do everything that's in QuickBooks Enterprise. Okay. Vendors, purchases, inventory. The other thing to keep in mind is if you do job costing in QuickBooks Enterprise, everything's linked at the item level. So if you don't link stuff to the item, you just link it to the account and then assign it to a customer, and you got to run your job cost reports, it's going to tell you that that cost is non-specified. You have to go back and use the items tab in the expense. So employees and payroll, banking, accountant and taxes, budgets and forecasts, lists. Okay, you have so many reports. And then obviously I'll touch on the custom reports here. I do want to show you one thing. Let's make sure. Inventory stock status by item. Watch this. So I talked about automatic purchase orders earlier. Create automatic purchase orders. Look, I don't have the amount on hand that I'm supposed to have on hand for my super widgets. Right? So it's saying, hey, you need to order this. Automatic POs, right? So then I click this, right? Create the PO. Yes. Boom. Look, and it brings it up in my on PO column. Look at that. So it's still not available because obviously I haven't received it yet, but it starts bringing it in. Okay, so that I did want to talk about that. Custom reports. If you can't create a report from the other options available that are canned, like most, I would say 90% of customers are going to be able to find one of those reports that's specific to them, tweak a few columns, and shabam. For some of them, it can't. And if you have to start out from scratch, you can do that here. And it actually will access more fields than the regular reports that are showing up. Okay? And then, as we talked about, if it's summary report, that's where it's subtotaling, summarizing the data, transaction details are lists, so choose accordingly. Okay, so let's pick P&L. I want to show you how you customize these reports. You can comment. That's where the commented reports came in, by the way. Okay. Ooh, collapse rows. We talked about that. Okay, that would just click these like that. Okay. Okay, customize report. And then you can go click through previous year. So I did have another video. It's kind of old though. Percent of income. That will give you what's called a vertical analysis, or it's called a common size analysis, I believe it's called. It goes by different names, but it's basically saying what that line item is as a percentage of revenue. Filters. Several filters. And look, this memo thing I told you, it still blows my mind. So you could put like GHZ in the front of all your memos that you need to bring up on a certain report, which obviously you wouldn't do that. I think we used it the most with events and things where we wanted to run reports on events. And then it would find everything that has a memo, GHZ in it, and it would bring it up on this report. How amazing, right? So talk about inventive ways to slice and dice. You can change your header and footer information. Like for me, as a bookkeeper, I may put internal use only. So I'm not doing an audit or anything. It's not reviewed. Fonts and numbers. Okay. And there you go. Now, if I wanted to keep this customization, I could do Katie's profit and loss. Save in my memorized report group. Do I want to save it in a group, or I just want to save it? And do I want to share it with others? If I have other users on this data file that I want to share it with, I could do that too. Okay. I believe I've covered almost everything. Let's actually cut over to users real quick. That's under company. Again, you have like 14 defined user roles. You can have up to 40 users in QuickBooks Enterprise. Oh, don't ask me to log in. This is a little bit new, them wanting you to log in for absolutely everything. Here's your role list. Okay. So you can take different roles. One of my favorites is this banking. Watch this. You can pick separate registers. So if I had like a payroll register and operations register, I could give one person access to the payroll register, other person access to the operations register. Bam. Also, if you work in AP and somebody enters bills, but somebody else has to pay the bills or whatever, you can change your area access level. You can also do actually data level permissions this year, which I don't have any data levels here in this one, so I don't think I can show that to you now, but that's brand new, where you can say have certain people access certain customers or have certain people access certain vendors. Okay, there you go. So that's your users and permissions. We've talked about that now. Now the last thing I'm going to do is see if I can't get advanced reporting up and running. So one thing where you're trying to do something and they say switch to multi-user, like it's so backwards. Other users access click, no, okay. And that's what I thought. I don't think it's going to let me switch it because it's going to assume that I have. Let's see. You can use advanced reporting and regular reporting too, by the way. One does not replace the other. Don't do that to me. I don't have anybody else here. Okay, so there we go. So let's try to go into our advanced reporting now, see if it'll yell at us some more. Install now. This can take several minutes, so what I'm going to do is pause the video until it's up. Unless you have an empty video. No? Okay, that's my bad. Okay, I'm going to pause the video while I get this up and running. Just checking in. Advanced reporting is still generating. It's going to take a while. So I'll be back. I would make sure that if you're using this and you're under some sort of deadline, that you give yourself plenty of time to do the advanced reporting piece. Actually, no. I was going to show you Fixed Asset Manager, but I might hold off to do that until after this is up and running. Okay, so we're live. It actually only took like 10 minutes or so. It could have been shorter than that. If you had data in the system, though, I have had it take quite a while. So for today, I'm just going to focus on the starter reports. QuickBooks does have a learning area. If you're really interested in diving into this, I try personally to stay away from it when I can, but it's usable. It has its purposes. They advertise that it has access, advanced reporting has access to more of the data in QuickBooks than the regular reports do. So that's cool too. Plus you can do calculated fields, which I'm actually working on a project for that right now. So like with your typical reports, you can't do calculated fields. With this one, you can. And you can bring up, a starter report, they call them. Here you go. It's coming up. And again, this is a separate program from QuickBooks. It's just underneath QuickBooks, but it's licensed through another company. Okay, so you can add objects, you can add dates, list boxes, filters or tables, text and utilities, and so forth. So obviously right here, I don't have a whole lot of stuff in there. Okay, there you go. And that's advanced reporting. I'm sure there's better tutorials than this on advanced reporting, but I'm not going to touch on it a whole lot today. We're already running long. It's a yes. I will jump over into the Fixed Asset Manager next. Okay, so that should be under Company, Manage Fixed Assets. This is another one where you have switch single user mode. That's more like what I'm used to. Switch to single user mode. Boo, 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 boo. Thank you for going on this journey with me today, by the way. I'm hopeful that it's helpful. I try to touch on everything. It may be too much information, but you know, better too much than too little. Come on, honey. I saw you come up and go away. Where are you? No, no. I bet it's still launching. Let's close these windows while we're at it. Oh, I'm going to do something I shouldn't do. I'm going to try to launch it again. It is not wanting to launch on this today. So what I'll do is I'll do another video coming up and I'll cover the fixed asset manager. I have had some trouble with this computer here of late, so I've got another one on the way, but it should be here in about a week or so. But there is almost everything except for fixed asset manager. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave a comment and I'm more than happy to talk about it. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me today, and I hope that you're here for the next video. Talk soon. Bye.